This is Jeffrey Crivero, and with me is Dr. Connie Lester. I'm conducting an oral history with Judith Dolores Smith. The interview is being conducted at Trevor Colburn Hall at the University of Central Florida on Thursday, July 28, 2022. Ms. Smith, thank you for speaking with us today. Would you please begin by stating your name for us and just telling us a bit about where you're from and what life was like for you growing up?
Okay, my name is Judith Dolores Smith. I was born in Sanford, Florida, but that's because I was born in a hospital. Most people around my age who were living in Oviedo were born in Oviedo, but I was born in Sanford, and I from a family of 4 children, 2 adults, and my mother was a teacher in the public school, colored school system from about about when she was like 18, a little over, because she went to the colored schools within the city of Oviedo, and the school she attended was located next to the Antioch Missionary Baptist Church. And I forgot what grade it went up to, but when she needed to get her high school diploma, she had to go to the FAMU, Florida Agriculture and Mechanical University in Tallahassee to get her high school diploma. So she boarded there, got her high school diploma, came back, and at that time you were able to start teaching with the high school diploma. So she started teaching and eventually got her bachelor's degree from the Bethune-Cookman College. So I grew up very much enmeshed in the colored school system because I was always helping my mom with her papers and things of that sort. And again, since she was an educator, we were always involved in things, going to meetings with her. Also, my dad worked for Nelson and Company at the fertilizer plant. So he, which was located downtown Oviedo, and now it's going to be a historic district called the Water Tower District. So our town was very much centered around the citrus industry because that's what drove the community. Also, what drove our community in terms of the colored schools, because in Oviedo, the first colored school was near the Antioch Missionary Baptist Church. Then it was moved to the on Oviedo Boulevard, which was Division Street, next to the across from the Fountainhead Missionary Baptist Church. It was moved at one point, and then they built a new school in 1960, the Jackson Heights Elementary Colored School, where currently is Jackson Heights Middle School. So they moved to that new building in 1960, and desegregation occurred about 1967. But the community was very much centered around our named church and school. That's where you were, because normally you were in church at least 3 times a week. And then on Sundays, you were there all day. And then in school, you were involved year-round, because I remember, and I love this, that they had summer school. And it wasn't summer school where you go to play. We played and everything, that was good. But we had, like, if you needed help in reading, they had a reading program. My mom always signed us up for the weekly reader that came in the mail, and we go there and do that. And then because there was not a pool that the black children could use in Oviedo, they would, I think once a week, they would bus us to Sanford, where they had a swimming pool, and I forgot where they had that pool at. But we would go and have great fun there. So that was the gist of what our life was like, centered around the school, the church, and therefore our activities that we were engaged in were either sponsored by the school or by the church. And I'll just name one thing for you. Each year, and there were maybe like 2 times a year that they had carnivals. One was usually around the fall, and they would have a carnival at the school. At that time, I remember, because I was at Jackson Heights Elementary School, they had rides. My mom was the candy apple maker. So she would make candy apples and then transport them. And I think she may have made the pronto puffs, the hot dogs, and you dip them in cornmeal. But we had things like that going on. We were very much living life as the white citizens, but we just had separate things going on. So we didn't miss out on anything. I don't think that we missed out on anything. But that's it in a nutshell. We were very much education oriented, because always there was a question asked of you. What are you going to do? Now, you could say where you're going to college, But there was no option for you just to say, well, I don't know. No, you know, either you're going to go to college, or you're going to the military, or you're going to get a vocational training, but you're going to do something. So there, I believe that everybody always had a clear path to a career. So that's it in a nutshell.
Could you describe a little about your experience attending Jackson Heights Elementary Colored School, and what are maybe some of your memories that stand out to you?
Well, when I first attended, it was 1960, because at that time they hadn't finished building the cafeteria. So they had, I don't think they had the third wing, because they had 3 wings. One was where the classrooms were. Then they had the auditorium and the cafeteria. But when I started school that year, we had to bring our own lunch. And one thing I remember, I didn't like milk. But when you brought your own lunch, you were required to buy a little pint of milk. And I hated milk. But you know, there was not an option not to drink the milk. So I had my little sandwich and I drank my milk. And because my mom was a teacher, I wasn't gonna, I'm not gonna cause any problems. But I remember that. And then I think halfway into the year, I believe they had the cafeteria. And my goodness, the cafeteria, the food was absolutely delicious. One thing that they made that was just, you could go for seconds, were yeast rolls. And they would make the yeast rolls and put butter on there. And you could just smell them all over the school. And my sister-in-law's mother was working in there along with a couple of other people I remember. And she's just, she should have been a caterer, because the food's just delicious. But that's the kind of thing that we had. They just did, right now I could just smell the yeast rolls. And again, because my mom taught 2nd grade, she was never my teacher. But again, because of who she was, and she, bringing whatever home and whatever was going on, I got a bird's eye view of exactly what the education system was about. And it was never, in my opinion, it was never about, to me, a black or white. The thing was education. We're here to educate you. They did not tolerate any nonsense. That's a Southern term, which meant that you behaved. And if you did not, there were consequences. And it did not wait until you got home. When you got home, you got the second set of consequences, because your parents wanted you to learn. And so they really just supported the teachers. And we were always just reading. That was one thing I loved, reading, because we had a wonderful library. And we were encouraged to read, encouraged to look beyond our little space here in Oviedo. And it was just so marvelous, because again, I'll tell you something that one of my mother's students told me. I didn't know it. When they were at the school on Division Street, my mom would let them listen to the World Series. And why she did that, she taught them how to figure out batting averages. And he remembered that, and I said, well, he said she was one of my favorite teachers. I said, I guess you, but he was involved in baseball and things like that. But again, those are the things that they did in order to get us excited about education, making it a real world experience. And just to let you know also, one reason they were excited about baseball, that was the time that Jackie Robinson was got into the league, the major league. So naturally, they were always about Jackie and the Dodgers. Los Angeles Dodgers, I believe. And so they were always talking about him. And so, of course, that was with great pride they would want to know about him. So that's one of the things that I remember. And again, just going through the system. And again, it wasn't about a black or white thing, although we were always admonished that because you are black and less may be expected of you, somebody else may be expecting less, but we expect excellence. So the expectation was always put here, my teachers expect excellence. So I'm going to do whatever I can to not disappoint them. And because the system, because our teachers normally lived in our neighborhood, or again, my mom's friends, he had friends in Sanford, but Sanford was our county seat, and we were always in Sanford. But because we knew the people who were our educators, they were people who went to church with us. We knew we didn't want to disappoint them, definitely. Matter of fact, it's not a matter of disappoint, it's a matter of discipline. That you knew your parents expected you to do what your teacher said, and there was no question. There was no question about what the teacher said. The parents believed what the teacher said in terms of discipline or whatever. They believed it. So your teacher said you did this. There was no explaining. Well, no. You do what your teacher says. And so that's what I remember about just going through that and having a marvelous time, because I was excited about the process of learning and about, again, not a black-white thing. That we had I remember the Bible lady came, and I think she came once a week, and she was white. We did have contact with white, because again, our parents worked for, my dad worked for Nelson and Company. So it's not that we didn't have contact, it's just within the educational setting and a religious setting. We didn't have, but I mean, everybody knew each other because we were a small community. At the time I was growing up, about 2,000 people. So again, the school was important because it provided all that we needed in terms of entertainment, whatever. It came through the school or the church. So that's it.
Excellent. So many Central Florida schools were still considered segregated over a decade after the Brown versus Board of Education decision. You'd go on to attend Oviedo High School during a period of racial integration. Do you remember what that first day was like, and would you share some of your memories of your high school experience with us?
Well, the first day I was in 8th grade, and the year before, at the end of our school term, the guidance counselors came to the school, and I guess they got all the paperwork and signed us up for classes. So that year in 7th grade, I had made all A's. So when I got to Oviedo High, which is at the Lawton campus at that time, because I think it was from kindergarten to 12th. So what they had done, and this is no judgment, I'm just telling you facts. I'm not making a judgment of what happened. When we all got there, I noticed all of the black students were in like one classroom, because normally the classrooms were maybe divided into sections like A, B, or C. A being college prep, B being vocational, whatever. So I remember, I don't know how, it wasn't that far into the school week, I think, that I was having a conversation with my English teacher, and she was saying, well, how did you do in 7th grade? I said, I did really well. She said, well, what kind of grades? I said, I got all A's. She said, you got all A's? She said, well, you shouldn't be in this class. You need to be in college prep classes. And that really, it stuck with me, but what stuck with me, but that she had a conversation with me, and she put me in the classes that I needed to be in, because whatever classes I was in was not going to allow me to get the courses I need to prepare for college. So that's one of the first things I remember. But again, because my mom and dad, and I'm talking about my household, my mom and dad was sending me to school to learn. I had a few unpleasant experiences, but you know, I never looked at it as unpleasant. I tried to become involved in everything I could. And matter of fact, our principal, Mr. Holder, I'll never forget him. He was always, and I don't know why, maybe it was because of my grades, I don't know, but he would always say, Judith, why don't you join this club, or just do this. Judith, why don't you go out for cheerleader? I sound a little chubby, no, go out for cheerleader. And he was like always pushing me. And so my experience, and again, my mom and my dad, the expectation is that you make the most of that experience. You're going to be educated, and you are going to college, because my brother and sister, they were, my brother was 5 years older, my sister was 6 years, and then my other brother is 8 years older. So again, they were all in college by the time I got to 8th grade. So there's the expectation, you're going to college. Now my mom said, you can choose whatever college you want to go to. You're not transferring, so make a good choice. So again, there's that expectation that you're going beyond this. And so that's why I wasn't bogged down with black or white. That's not the issue. The issue is, what am I going to become so that I can move ahead more than what my parents did, because here they are with an expectation that I'm going to do better than they did. And so, again, the bad experiences didn't matter to me. And I can, name a couple. Well, I'll tell you one experience. We had a young lady, I remember who she was. She had a fight with a white girl, and I forgot what it was about. And so she beat her up, the black girl. So the next day we come in, and it was, we were nervous because they didn't have the robes on, but the white parents were there lined up on the road where my mom would drop me off every morning at the end of the road, and then I would walk to the school. But there were all the white parents, mostly men, that lined up, and what am I going to do? I wasn't going to run back at my mom. My mom put me there to go to school, so I walked on to my classes. That was probably the thing that stood out most in my head, that right there, because they were there for intimidation, but it didn't work in terms of, it was hard, but I went to school. So again, and then from other people's perspective, somebody else would look at it and say, that was so mean. I didn't carry that with me. I'm just telling you the facts. That's what happened. And I went beyond it. I had to decide next, okay, what club am I going to join? I'm going to get my grades and everything. So I was back on track right here. So.
In 2001, you were involved in planning a class reunion of various colored schools in Seminole County between 1953 and 1967. A booklet was also created that details the history of the black community's drive to create a place to educate their children. How did you become involved in this project, and could you tell us a little bit about the event?
Yes, it's very fortuitous, because I believe that what we're doing now started in 2001. My cousin and my best friend decided that they wanted a reunion, and our other friend, who really, I think, put the seed in their head, Erlene Tosi Carwise, she's the one who put the seed in their head and said, we ought to have a reunion. And my cousin Gloria Godwin and Gracia Muller put the word out in the community that we're going to have a reunion of all the kids who went to Jackson Heights Colored School and Oviedo. And so we set it for the summertime, set it for 3 days, and we would do it like they did the carnivals. We would have like a carnival atmosphere. We rented the school auditorium at Jackson Heights Middle School. We had something in the park, and I had, at that time, around 1997, started doing genealogical research. So I was just like really into history and genealogy. So I said, I'll volunteer to do the history. And I thought, piece of cake, I'm going to find all the history. And so when I contacted the school board and Jackson Heights, I said, can you give me all of the pictures from that time period and any other thing that you have? And they said, okay, well, let me check. I waited. Then the young lady called me back. We don't have anything. I said, wait a minute, now you have to have something. Surely you have some of the paperwork, the pictures, because we were always having pictures taken. Surely there's something, anything. We don't have anything. And so that's when my quest began. I had a lot of things because of my mom, and my mom's, some of everything for my mom, like her teaching certificate, some of the workbooks that she used, pictures, of course my report cards to show you how they did our reporting, and whatever else she had, I had that. So I started out with a treasure trove of things. Then we put the word out to the community and said, please, if you have pictures, let me borrow them. And at that time, my computer wouldn't hold all of that data. What I did was I went to Kinko's and I copied the photos, and they showed me how to lay it out on a sheet of paper at 8 by 11 and a half. Yes, and I would lay it out, and they showed me how to put the white edges around it so that I would then copy those. And so, as opposed to putting it in the computer, I started out with a hard copy, and that's what I did. And I got pictures, copied them, gave them back to people. And at the end of 8th grade, at Jackson Heights, at Oviedo Colored School, they would always have an 8th grade graduation. And there was always a picture of that group, that class group. And I was able to get a lot of those pictures from people, individuals who had saved their class pictures. So those, I thought those were just wonderful to have. So everybody was so cooperative, and they gave me their paraphernalia, and I always tried to do it the same day and get the pictures back. And so that's how I gathered all of this. And then I found out that Bethune-Cookman is a repository for the colored schools. And I went and got pictures from them, did a field trip over there. And so it was just little bit by little bit, the community offering their memorabilia. One lady, Miss Witherspoon, who worked in the in the cafeteria, she had the original program from the Jackson Heights dedication. That was invaluable. So I copied that off and used that because it had the history and how they got to where they were. So again, it was a community effort, and because again, I was like on a mission. I have a little obsessive compulsive personality going on, so I was not going to let this opportunity pass by. I wanted them to have the students to have something to remember the occasion by, and so a lot of it I did it with my own monies because I wanted them to say, I was here, and this is a memory book.
What inspired you to become involved in the Oviedo City Council group, and what was that experience like?
Well, in 2000, well, I always attended city council meetings, and just attending and wanting to know how the government functions and just being a part of it was why I attended with my sister. And I was a member of a group called the Oviedo Citizens in Action. My sister was the president, I was the secretary. So it was formed, I think about 1959, because a group of people had seen some concerns they had, that the black community's concerns weren't being addressed. And so this group was formed. So as a result, we would attend city council and report back to the group what we observed. And I did this for a number of years. And then finally, in 2009, I said to myself, I can run for city council, why not? That's the American way. Well, I was very naive. Yes, I can run, but there's a system in place. But I did run in 2009. That was the first, and I garnered like 25% of the vote. But I learned a lot about the system of government, and I continued to attend the meeting. So in the next year, 2010, there was an open seat. And when there's an open seat, you really want to go for the open seat, because normally if there's an incumbent, the incumbent has the they have the drive behind them. They have the support and everything else. So there was an open seat. I ran in 2010, and there were like 7 people. Again, you do that to get the experience. And again, there's nothing like seeing it from the inside. It's not the same as from the outside. So I garnered that. In 2018, that was somebody said, "Why don't you run?" And I'm saying, well, I had just come up of a lot of issues, and with my brother being ill, and so I didn't think I could run. But then I said, why not? Because again, my name had been out there 2 times. I ran and I lost by 300 votes, I think. So the next year, the incumbent was retired, and I said, this is an opportune time. And so my name was out there, I ran, and I won. And it's just a fantastic experience, serving the community, because that's what I felt. I was elected to serve the community, to protect and defend the citizens. That's the vow I took, an oath of office. And it was the most wonderful thing that happened. Now, when I ran in last year, I did not win. I lost by 300 votes, but you know, that's just the nature of the beast. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but that's just the nature of it. It's politics, and you regroup and you consider your options.
Could you please describe for us the Oviedo Colored School Museum project? How did it come about and what's the current status?
Oh, I'm excited about that because this is a culmination of what we have been working for since 2018. I was passing by, I had not thought about a museum at that point. The important thing for me was just keeping the book current. So I was passing by the St. James AME Church one day, and that was the site of the Gabriella Colored School. And we'd had a hurricane, I forgot the name of the hurricane. We'd had a hurricane like 6 months before, and there was a hole in the roof. Part of the tin on the roof had been blown off. And so I would keep passing by for months, and the hole was still there. And one day I passed by and I said, why doesn't someone fix that hole? I mean, it's a historic building. And I didn't hear an audible voice, but just like something within me said, why don't you fix it? And I said, at least I can do that. So I contacted the AME church and I said, can I fix the hole? And then if so, I would like to rent the building to turn it into a museum. And I put a proposal out. I told them what I'd like to do. I'd like for that to be the first phase in a project to get a museum in Oviedo to house all of the 7 colored schools, because there were 7 around the Oviedo area. One I didn't know about that was in Chula until about 2 years ago. So when I got with the AME, African Methodist Episcopal Diocese, to arrange for the lease, and that took a little bit of time. And once we got the lease, we then, I got the board together. We have 5 members on the board. And then we started trying to fundraise and get the community aware of what we were trying to do. And last year, 2021, we got our lease signed with the African Methodist Episcopal Diocese. Once we got the lease signed, then we began to look at funding options. And that was the second part of the hard work. And then someone told us about a grant with the African American Historic Cultural through the state of Florida. And we applied for a grant last November, I think it was. I went to Tallahassee at the beginning of 2022 to present the grant. And our grade was like in the middle. I think there were 160 people who applied for the grant. We were like in the middle. There was $30 million available for this grant, and we missed it by $6 million. So at least that was a learning experience. But when I got back home about like a week later, we got notification that the legislature had added $30 more million. And we were waiting for the governor to sign off, and so he has, and so now I'm waiting to be assigned a worker who would take me through the process of getting my contractors and everything for the job. And so that's where we are right now. Now, we did have Certified Best Roofing, a local company, donated us a roof. So yes, we got a roof on there, which gives us time. Now we don't have any leaks or anything. It buys us a little time to work to get the funding through the state, and then have our contractor do what needs to be done so that we can complete it. And it will be a staff museum because we want it to be a living museum. And I always use the example of Colonial Williamsburg, where it's a living museum where they show you how things were done in the colonial times. And I want to do that to make it alive, not to be a stuffy place all full of dust. No, no, no. This will be a living museum, and we will have staff there, and it will be open for tours, open for community groups who want to use it. We have a gentleman in Jamestown who's going to teach organic gardening. He has a beautiful organic garden. We have a project going on right now where some of the students and teachers are making aprons, and they made aprons, and we have a little a patch with our logo on it, and we're going to be selling those. And so they're going to maybe have sewing classes there. So that's the kind of thing we want to be going on in the museum, where we show people about our past and what we did and accomplished.
Excellent. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to add or expand on? Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share?
My final thoughts are, and I did this when UCF on the Road did an interview with me in 2018. And one of the things when people hear about the colored schools, immediately sometimes people say, oh, well, it's not that kind of thing. We want to show that we had a glorious past. Although we were separated, our goals were the same as any group of people around the world. We were trying to educate the next generation so that they can go beyond what our parents accomplished. And so the colored school is a history of a glorious past in the midst of difficult circumstances, but we accomplished a lot. The people who were educating us, our parents, didn't look at us and say, oh, you poor little colored. No. Did you do your homework? If you didn't, get in there and do your homework. It was that kind of thing, because you aren't going to succeed or excel unless you buckle down, do your homework, have good manners. That's what I want people to know, that we were operating as any other group of people who were had a vision for greater things for their children. And it's not a sad history. So that's the gist of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you sharing your time and speaking with us. This has been Jeffrey Crivero with Dr. Connie Lester on July 27th, 2022.